Girls can get friend-zoned too, women of Reddit. Share your stories. Story 1. The last couple weeks I've been on 5 to 6 dates with this guy, a cop I've known for years. Yesterday he texts me, "I'm really enjoying hanging out with you. I know we're not GF material, but I can see us being great friends." Today, he asked me out for lunch and told me about the date he had last night. He told me it wasn't a romantic date, just a friend date like what we do. Yup, I'm pretty sure I'm friend-zoned. Story 2. This guy would come over to my house and insist on cuddling and watching movies the whole time. Would keep me up all night on the phone because he slept better when he could hear my voice. Would send me good morning texts, and hold my hand whenever the opportunity presented itself. Then told his best friend that he wished I would just get over it. Story 3. In my experience, a solid majority of males are oblivious to hints that chicks think are blatantly obvious. I was talking to my boyfriend the other day, about before we got together, and a lot of the things I did to try and let him know I was mega into him weren't even noticed. In the end, a simple "I'm into you, we should go out" does the trick really well. Story 4. I went on a couple dates with one guy I'd met through friends, or so I thought. We proceeded to hook up, and 3 days later he was dating another girl. He thought we were both just lonely and hanging out. I thought he was the bee's knees. We're great friends to this day, but I cried every time I saw him for the longest. I've friend-zoned guys before, but never since that day. I make it a point to be very upfront and honest. I didn't realize how much worse than heartbreak the friend-zone felt. Story 5. I was in love with my best friend for 3 years. We did everything together, went to the movies, had Doctor Who nights, went hiking, etc. He would even stop by to talk to me at work and texted me every night about which episodes of Star Trek were on. He told me all his and I told him mine. He helped me out of my depression and was the first one I told when I was raped. We gave each other gifts and everyone thought we were dating. He even encouraged the image when we were out in public, but it never went anywhere. Instead of telling me he simply wasn't attracted to me, we continued a charade of couple-like behavior. He started dating someone and I felt I needed to be blunt, blunter than I had already been. I told him I loved him and he didn't talk to me for a year. He got married in September. I'm engaged now, so I guess it all worked out for the best in the end. Story 6. ID had an absolutely massive 4-year-long crush on a friend of mine. I got worse than friend-zone though. You're just like a sister to me. Just recently he came out, and he asked me if ID think it's okay if he hooked up with my brother. Edit just so this can stop the 42 billion messages I'm getting. As I said, he's just recently came out as gay. At the time he was straight, so it was as though he had friend-zoned me then. Story 7. Fall hard for boy. Spend a collective 2 months in a casual fling spread over 5 months. He serenades me. A few days later he tells me he wants to get back with his ex. Whatever, get over him mostly. All is well. Then 6 months later, he calls me and tells me he needs someone to talk to. I of course go with him. He drives me around while ranting about his once again ex-girlfriend. We drive past a place where apparently they had in the parking lot and tells me all about it. He spends about 2 hours telling me why he's crazy about this girl and why she pisses him off. Then he takes me home and never talks to me again. Yeah. Story 8. This sorta goes along with this thread. I totally friend-zoned this girl in high school. I'd gone to elementary and middle school with her as well, and she was always sort of the weird girl out of the girly girl group. She wasn't chubby, but she wasn't skinny either. Anyway, fast forward 2 years, she's plays the trombone in the high school band and has one of her friends give me this note asking me to the Sadie Hawkins. I said no, mostly because I wasn't planning on going at all, but also because she was just a little out there for my tastes. In college, I met her at a bar once, and she's gorgeous, smart, and hilarious. I think ultimately I lost. Story 9. I'm a Reddit guy and I have friend-zoned a few females before. Although I hate the use of the term friend-zone, I much prefer the term selective dating. There have been a few females before who, even though they are very attractive females, I have felt I would benefit more from a friendship with them than a relationship. I feel it is important for myself to have a mix of male and female friends, and although some of you may find this hard to comprehend, I truly believe this is the best path to a healthy lifestyle. Story 10. I kept getting friend-zoned by this guy that I liked and had been friends with for about 3 years. Feelings didn't start right away. I got vibes from him, or so what I thought were vibes. One night we were both wasted and we ended up sleeping together. I thought to myself, OMG, this is it, he's gonna tell me he has feelings for me too. He ends up telling me that he's gay and that he was trying to force something that wasn't there. But after the drunk encounter he realized that he wasn't even attracted to girls. This really was the best outcome as we're now best friends, and he found himself in the process. Story 11. I've had my current job for about 7 months now. I'm a secretary in a doctor's office. It's a bigger office and there are a few doctors there, and one of them has this amazingly hot son who comes in to help out every now and then when he's not in school. He and I became good friends over time, and I inevitably developed feelings for him, which I assumed were mutual judging by his constant flirting and compliments. So you can imagine my surprise when he pulls me aside one day and asks for my advice because he's planning on proposing to the girlfriend I didn't know existed until that very moment. If I had, they would have shriveled up and crawled back inside. Hello friend-zone, you merciless son of a dash. Story 12. One of my good friends had left for the army. I know how lonely you can feel in the military, so I decided to drop over 500 to go halfway across America to a shitty city in Georgia that is basically the first level of one tumbleweed-filled mall, a few fast food restaurants, and my hotel. It was awful and humid. But it was worth it to see him just for a few days. We'd been friends since middle school. He was there when my boyfriend broke my heart, I was there when his girlfriend did the same. It was a beautiful friendship really, and people often made comments about us being a couple. I kinda got sucked into the thought, to be honest, NYWYS. I go to a shitty city in Georgia to spend just a few days with him. We have a sweet running reunion jump hug combo. He shows me off to a few of his army friends, and get shakes and burgers together at this old-fashioned Mappa diner. The next day all we do is cuddle and laugh. We held hands through the shitty one-horse mall. He helped me pick out a cute summer dress. I even initiated a kiss or two. It was like a movie, it was beautiful. I even wrote a poem that night. I was so inspired by the overflow of emotions. A few months later he comes back home. I invited him over to have a Skyrim party with a few friends. Denied. Oh, invited him to go to dinner. Nope. Okay, hang out, watch movies and cuddle, make hot cocoa, drive by high five, nada nothing zip. I didn't get to see him for about 2 months and he lived right down the road. Turns out his ex who was dating his best friend while he was gone told him to stop hanging out with me. And after I asked him about it I got the classic we make better friends than a couple anyways. Haha. TLDR spent too much money to see a guy who wants absolutely nothing to do with me. Lonely female sends unclear signals to guy friends. Expects them to make the first move. ID say friendzoning is more along the lines of rejected instead of I had a huge crush on this guy, but he started dating someone else. Rant braces for downvotes. Story 13. Alright ladies, this is friendzoning. I had a massive crush in high school head over heels. We become friends because I learned on TV that friendship leads to being girlfriend-boyfriend. Curse you 90s romantic comedies that promised the shy quiet loner when applied a montage makeover sequence could get the anything of their dreams. Becomes clear that this person doesn't like me in that way but wants to stay friends. Sucks but cool. I hit on another person almost a year later, and former crush breaks down in tears because they are afraid they will lose me and doesn't like seeing me with other people. Because I'm young and naive I take this for hope that I got a shot. Nope. Next 2 years of constant rebuffs, but the slightest hints I am attracted to anyone else leads to waterworks. That is friendzoning. Story 14. A guy has to be pretty out of touch to not realize that no girl can get any guy she wants. The whole friendzone thing stems from the idea that if a guy does the right thing, the girl will fall for him, like pick-up artist moves. It ignores the fact that women care what you look like and don't all want the same behaviors from a guy. But my favorite story about a guy not being interested was I was once set up with a guy on a group trip. From the second we met, I realized he was not interested and was willing to switch to friend mode. The guy proceeded to make it so awkward that I had to avoid him entirely. It was like he thought I was going to lunge on him if I got within 5 feet of him. Story 15. Having a crush on someone, and then finding out that they don't like you being put in the friend zone. If you are in the friend zone as a result of this, you put yourself there, realize that not everybody you're ever attracted to is going to feel the same way. If you can't deal with this, that's your own problem. Disclaimer: I'm operating under the definition of friend zone whereby the friend zoner purposely keeps the friend zonee as just a friend even they insert good qualities here because they're afraid of losing them or otherwise don't want to risk a relationship. I find this is often mixed with cases of people who can recognize the good qualities in someone without having any romantic feelings towards them, thus leading to confusion when they mention said good qualities and you'll make some girl guy lucky etc., but won't date HD person themselves. Story 16. Totally in love with a guy who introduced me to Reddit. He pays for my meals, cooked me dinner once, offered to meet my parents the last time he picked me up for dinner. Sounds not so bad, right? Last week we were at a bar with some friends and he brought up the birthday gift I gave him and said yep she's the greatest friend ever, and tried to give me a high five. I witnessed my own friend zoning moment. Edit told him how I felt, did not get the response I would have hoped for, cried a bunch. But then I received a month of Reddit gold from Atlantic Prince for doing the right thing. Definitely made me smile. Thanks Reddit for the support and thanks Atlantic Prince for being a stranger. Story 17. Unlike most people, when I like someone like that and I learn they don't like me like that back, I usually stop hanging out with them. I don't want to torture myself, so, no, I have not been friend-zoned. I think it is a choice. Accept it and move on, or live in a fantasy. You created all your own. Story 18. A friend of mine in high school knew I was madly in love with him, so he just manipulated me as much as he could to get what he wanted out of me. So yeah. Story 19. So, I may or may not have friend-zoned a girl a few years ago without realizing it at the time. I worked at an animal hospital when I was in high school. There was one other girl who was my age and we became good friends. Joking around at work, after a few months, rumors started to spread that we liked each other. I laughed them off as my coworkers being nosy I didn't like her. So, one day she comes up to me and asks me if I'd like to get pizza after work. We hadn't hung out outside of work, so I said sure, it was fun, but at work everyone called it a date. I said it wasn't, that we were just friends. She obviously heard this, so she asked if I would like to go on a date with her. I told her I wasn't really looking for a relationship at that time. Right around this time I left the hospital and we drifted apart. I started dating a girl from my school shortly thereafter. A few weeks later I decided to try to talk to the girl at the animal hospital, and she's very upset with me. Apparently she had to work up the courage to ask me out for a long time. And the fact that I told her I wasn't looking for anything and started dating someone so soon after hurt her feelings a lot. I've never felt worse, and to be honest, I kind of wish I could go back to take her on a date. She's an awesome girl. Story 20. I was seriously attracted to a coworker and we became fast friends. We hung out a lot, went on travels together, shared hotel rooms, but he never busted a move on me. Finally, on a trip to Vegas with him I got sort of drunk and kissed him. He pushed me away and said that he didn't feel that way about me. I was pretty crushed embarrassed, so he just held me until I fell asleep. I was really confused. I've never had a problem with men before. This is the only guy who didn't at least want to sleep with me, so I went and convinced myself he must be gay. He was attractive, but never had anything to do with women. Flash forward a few years. He's engaged to an absolutely stunning, cool as really accomplished woman. Turns out he wasn't gay. He just had really high standards in women and really high standards in personal behavior. P.S. Yeah, I'm well aware that assuming that he was gay because he wasn't into me make me moxie, live and learn. So the guys of Reddit can share their friend zone stories, but if the ladies do, we get told he just didn't want to date a fatty or quiet girls that have a crush on someone, and that someone starts dating another girl isn't considered friend zoning. It's you needing to man up or something along those lines. Get a grip, guys. You all are just as guilty as us ladies. Story 21. One of the main comments that I've noticed that keep popping up is that apparently guys often mention how weird it would be to date a lady that is taller than they are. Please stop this. Although, I do usually tend to reply along the lines of it doesn't matter how tall we are lying down. Automatically unfriend zone. P.S. I am 61, and have heard this more often than I'd like to. It can be a bummer. Story 22. A college friend and I reconnected over FB after 8 years. He ended up married to his college GF. No big deal. We kept in touch via FB message on occasion, and chatting, nothing inappropriate, but we actually became quite good friends. Met up with him when he visited my town on business. I was engaged then, so he also met my then fiancée. He was the emotional support through that horrendous breakup. I was his emotional support when he went through his divorce. His wife of 10 years cheated on him twice. Throughout that time, he told me stuff like, "You're the perfect girl and why are you still single?" and all that nonsense. We made plans for him to come to my APT and drink whiskey and watch ridiculous movies when he was emotionally ready for that. Only it never happened. He started dating a girl 10 years younger than him and me, telling me about how every guy wants her and what does she see in me. She's so attractive. That was the point. I cut all communication and moved on with my life. Story 23. There was a girl in my class who kept on glancing at me and giggling and stuff. Then I found notes with hearts and things in my locker, in my bag, on my desk, etc. I knew it was that girl because I recognized her handwriting. She wrote things like "I love you, I want to be your slave," and the things gradually get sicker. Pull down my dress and kiss my forest, or when are we going to get married? I'm wet for you already. She's actually a weirdo in my class. Very scary, and I have no heart for her. So I just walked up to her and said, "I'm sorry, but I'm unable to accept your transaction of love. My heart cannot proceed with such a course. I hope it's okay to keep some distance away from each other as friends." Story 24. One of my best guy friends in high school who I had a little bit of a crush on. Hey, guess what just happened? Me what? Him. I asked Allison to prom and she said yes, we're going to the movies this weekend too. Me gray it, strangled laughter. Story 25. Had the biggest crush on my friend in college. I'd invite him over to study several times. Imagine sharing Clueless with the hair tossing and the rolling off the bed. Nothing ever came of it, and I thought he just missed the signals. A couple years later, drunk at a New Year's party, I confessed what I thought was my big secret. He admitted that he knew all along and had deftly avoided my advances. Embarrassing for all involved. Story 26. Notice how few to none of these stories have segments of anger and bitterness where girls decry all men as only liking, and how all the nice girls can't get anyone. Story 27. Weirdest ever. I had been hanging out with this guy for almost a year. He liked me and I liked him. I went over his house once for his birthday. We went to his room and made out a little. The door was cracked and in came his dog. The dog then started to growl and bite my ankles. A week later I asked if he wanted to be more than friends. He said exact quote, "We can't date, my dog hates you, I'm afraid he might hurt you, I hope we can stay friends. I like you but I love my dog, friend zoned by a dog." Story 28. This thread is perfect for most of the boy-girl relationships I've ever been in. Anyways, I got drunk and decided I would post here. I'm super shy around boys, so most of the time I can't be friends with them unless I'm not attracted to them or they're gay. However, I sometimes wander around in friend circles that contain guys that I'm really attracted to, but never talk to because I have low self-esteem. Anywho, there was this one guy, just my type. He was tall and lanky with wavy dirty blonde hair. Every time I would talk to him he would be hilarious, and we would get drunk together and have a grand old time. One night I decided that it was time for me to woman up and net this bad boy. I would dress up, go to our friend's party, and despite the fact that it terrified me, I would go up to him and tell him how I felt. I was madly in love with him, and I sure hoped he felt the same. As soon as I walked in the door, he was in the corner making out with his super hot girlfriend. Awesome. He moved away shortly afterwards. Story 29. Okay, maybe the most politically incorrect post I've made on Reddit, maybe highly inaccurate, honestly. Feel free to reply if you're an exception, etc. This won't apply to everybody, but having romantic feelings for a friend who doesn't have them for you is one thing. Having romantic feelings for a friend whom you treat like a queen king, frequently cries on your shoulder, complains about the people they date treating them badly to you, asks why so many of your gender are so insensitive, leads you on for months, years as part of some self-esteem boost or something, but will straight up have with random they barely know, even ones who verbally abuse them, before they'd ever so much as kiss you on the cheek, etc. Is another. This is probably not the most accurate place for sampling, but I've seen a lot more latter going on in the guy victim friendzoning reported here and a lot more of the former going on in this thread. Also, advice ladies, although they may not want to get into an actual relationship, and they may be afraid or just clueless as how to bring it up, but most single guys are totally fine with being FWB with any of their remotely attractive female friends, and that is leagues more than we're getting from you. It makes me cringe to read that back because it sounds so pig-headed, but it's usually true enough to at least risk mentioning. Hope it helps. Story 30. I asked my best friend out in grade 8. He was an awesome guy, very fit and just fun to be around. He told me he didn't want to ruin our friendship, etc., etc. I said it was totally okay, but I was disappointed. He's married now, as am I, and we're still best friends. Which sometimes makes it harder when I think back and wonder what would have happened if we did try it. TLDR 13-year duration in the friend zone, yay. Story 31. Guy friend. I really have a crush on girl name, but I don't know how she feels. I'm pretty oblivious to that kind of thing. Me, yes I know, especially when someone has been trying for a long time. Awkward silence. Edit. Sorry, my story wasn't quite clear. We had been on a date a few years before that, but things worked out for the best. He is now engaged with that girl, and I have been dating someone else for a few years now. Story 32. Crushing on a guy in my smallish circle of friends at school. One night at dinner he says, "Just so you all know, I would never hit on any of the girls here. I want us to stay friends." I may have died a little inside. Story 33. I'm demisexual, so it takes me a long time to become attracted to someone. The most recent took 18 months. He's the younger brother of one of my good friends, and thanks to a friend code that we have, Rule 4, do not attempt to hook up with a baby brother. I held back. She then tells me that she thinks we'd be good together and gives me permission to give it a shot, so I took him out to a pub. We had dinner and drinks and talked science, and then he gave me a ride home. The conversation when we reached my apartment went something like this: I promised myself I wouldn't chicken out here, so even though this might be awkward, I just want to get this out in the open. I think you're very handsome and intelligent, and I would like to date you. Him. Wow, let me just say this, I'm flattered. But I wouldn't date you because I don't know how to be in a relationship, and I don't want to ruin what we have. I like being friends with you. Me. Okay, well, it's in your hands now. My offer's on the table. If you ever want to take me up on it. That was about a month ago. He then went to visit his sister in England. She said she'd try to talk him into it. Oh boy, I'm hanging out with him for the first time since he got back tomorrow. Hey, race to attempting to keep the friend zone as non-awkward as possible. Story 34. Got friend zoned by a good friend in the last 2 years in high school. He knew I was into him, and used it for his advantage, by constantly flirting with me just enough to keep me hoping, but at the same time every other chick around him. During that entire time I was there for him and helped him with his schoolwork and through his finals. Then at the prom after-show party, he made a move on me. I was drunk as, we danced really closely and I thought finally, but then he bent down to me and told me he had a new girlfriend. This was the only time I slaped a guy's face, but that felt so good. Haven't heard of him since and I don't wish him well. Story 35. I get so tired of all the guys complaining about getting friend-zoned, like it's something only girls do. It happens to me all the time. Recently I've been hanging out with this guy who keeps telling me how cute I am, how much he likes smart girls that he can really have a conversation with, how he wishes there were more girls like me. Then he started dating some girl who is obviously just using him, and complained to me about her incessantly. Now they finally broke it off, and he keeps telling me how he doesn't want to date at all anymore, because he doesn't trust women. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doomed to always be just one of the guys, without anyone ever considering me as dating material. Story 36. There was this guy in middle school I was crushing on forever. I made it very clear I was into him. He never asked me out but was always a good friend. I think he went on to be gay. Story 37. My best friend is incredibly hot. Friends of mine have seen her photos on FB and don't believe me that she is my best friend. I would not date her. She is attractive and everything, but I can't really see myself with her. I'm pretty sure that the feeling is mutual. Sometimes you just don't feel the same way about another person. Sure, it sucks, but there isn't much that one can do. You can just try to move on and hope you don't get stuck in the same position next time you like someone. I had friend zoned my ex until something sparked and then we dated for a bit. Didn't work out for too long. Story 38. I'm glad you posted this. This happened to me all the time until my second year of college, graduated this past spring. The worst one was that I was so in love with my closest male friend in high school. I did end up telling him about 6 months after I met him, but I knew he was after another girl. When that didn't work out, about 3 months later, he acted reciprocal toward me, even telling me he'd like to date me but had some things to work out with himself and his feelings first. Well, fast forward another 3 months and he ends up falling for another girl. About a year into their relationship he tells me while I'm at his brother's birthday with him that there's something about me he finds attractive and would like to investigate that, and also that he never could see himself staying with this girl forever. I never really totally got the hint and move on until after he eventually did marry that girlfriend. They've been divorced for about 2 years now. Story 39. This is going to get lost, but I was best friends with a guy for a while. We hung out all the time, texted literally 100 times a day, went for midnight rendezvous in the park, had amazing together. He messages me good night and good morning every day. He'd get jealous if I got too cozy with other men, and I told him that I had a thing for him and that I could see us going beyond friends with benefits as we were loosely defined. He said, I'm just not ready for a relationship at the moment. Okay, maybe it should have been a red flag, but the at the moment implied that eventually he would be ready, and there I would be wrong. We continue to have sleepovers, inside jokes, hold hands, play board games, and act in every way like a couple. In fact, we have one night and while we're asleep afterwards he says another girl's name. The following day, Valentine's Day, no less, they begin dating, but he would really love it if we could still be friends because apparently he's never met anyone as amazing as me, who gets him and makes him laugh, and he hopes I can be in his life forever. We are definitely no longer friends. Story 40. Friend-zoned my ex a few months after she broke up with me. She wanted to get back together after realizing she made a huge mistake. Wasn't having that. Story 41. A guy here. What I'm gonna say may be a little off topic, but may justify the existence of the vortex of friendzone. I wonder how much people have this trouble. When I was younger I had my crushes, and each one of them crushed out my advances. They weren't bad persons or anything, pretty much the contrary. But all those no's surely made a dent on my character. It reached a point that one day I simply stopped liking. I don't feel passion and I don't fall in love anymore. My chemistry set was thrown into the trash. It also made me oblivious to those things. Really strange. I probably had friend-zoned people since then, and I sure will without even realizing it. Now a little story, to keep it on topic. One girlfriend came back from studying at another city for years, and the first thing she did was friend-zone me. She wanted me near and not as a lover. Not a problem for a person like me. But this friendship is kinda stranded lately, and I believe it is because I ended friend-zoning her. Not my fault if you think about it. She would say how we were like brothers, but when I said it I think she didn't really like it pretty much. The way I say these things may make her look bad, but she wasn't a bad person. She's actually a good friend. PTLDR, I was so friend-zoned that now I auto-friend-zone women without even batting an eye. And friend-zone is now also a verb. Story 42. I'm a guy, and I know you weren't asking us, but I have friend-zoned a few women before. In my defense I have Asperger's and wasn't diagnosed until 30, so I really didn't know I was being I just assumed everyone was like me. There was one awkward time when my friend came up to me and said, "Hey, what's up with you and Jen dating?" I was like, "Oh, we just go out to eat a lot." Jen covered well, but I was basically level 100 for putting her in that spot. She was an amazing woman, smart, funny, beautiful, so it wasn't that I wouldn't have jumped at the chance. I honestly didn't believe I had one, so it never came up. When I look back at that scene I cringe knowing how it must have come off, but also I probably got friend-zoned 1,000 times and never knew it. X2. Story 43. I find that I am zoned way more than I am friend-zoned. Basically, I meet a guy, we hit it off, and from that point on, the only reason why he would want to hang out with me is if we're going to have any hint of intimacy or a genuine romantic connection freaks him out. I am slowly learning that this is not something I want and it is not satisfying to me in any way, but I don't think I'm at the point in my life where I'm able to control my drive enough to wake up and say, hey, I shouldn't even be fooling around with this person if they're not giving me what I really want and deserve. Take one guy I've slept with recently, for example. A typical night might start with cuddling, maybe a little chit-chat, but after what feels like way too short of a time, it will gravitate towards and then we fall asleep. He doesn't give us time to establish a real connection because he doesn't want that connection. But when you're insecure like me it's tough to face this. Really, I think too many people brand girls as slutty or promiscuous without realizing that they're just caught in this pattern of being used for by dudes. It's not easy to get out of, because sometimes the guy is really hot or really good at, but the feeling the next day is always one of emptiness. It also makes me think what is wrong with my personality that I'm not considered dateable by guys that I want to date. Story 44. I'm a permanent nice guy, so when I reject a girl she just gets the friend zone. I always feel awful about it, but if I don't like you I don't, but to make up for it, you'll be nicest guy ever and you'll hate how awesome I am. I'm awful, I should just be but I can't bring myself to. Story 45. I got Facebooks and had a crush on a guy for a while. We went on a few dates, then all of a sudden he stops talking to me, avoids my attempts to chat hang out, and now only likes some of my posts and links on FB. Story 46. As a guy, I've friend-zoned a lot of girls. It happens, if you're not into someone, there's nothing you can do as long as you're honest, which I always am. What kills me though is that I've had a couple of flings that I was very upfront about not wanting anything more than being, and somehow I get labeled and in the end. Don't get me wrong, I've had my fair share of friends with benefits relationships in which I ended up liking the girl and being sad they didn't want a real relationship, but that doesn't make them an, if someone is honest, can't fault them for that. Story 47. A lot of guys are saying we're guys completely oblivious. Part of that is true, but some of us just don't assume someone is interested in us, so for me at least, the girl really has to make the first mover be extremely forward about their interest. It's sort of a self-doubt thing for me. And I don't ever want to do something the other person doesn't want and would ruin our friendship or just invade their personal space. There was this girl that my friend and I called because we were bored and stuck in traffic. She said I was hot, and I told her I thought she was attractive too. It took 2 times hanging out and a joking statement from my friend for us to make out before I actually made a move. I guess my story is a little different than the ones being told, but everyone's different, so be forward about your interest and you'll at least have an answer. Story 48. All these stories begin with something along the lines of I've been hooking up with this guy, or I was seeing this guy, or this guy did X, and I reciprocated only to be followed up by then he stopped calling, or then he pretended I didn't exist or pulled a Steve I hate to break it to you. But none of that constitutes to being friend-zoned. You all got played. Although I suppose it's an emotional equivalent to being friend-zoned, it's not the same thing. Story 49. Does anyone else think the friend zone is total bullshit designed to coddle the ego of the rejected? About 90 of the stories I hear about someone being friend-zoned is nothing more than one person being attracted to another and not having those feelings reciprocated. It has nothing to do with, oh, you're just a great friend. It has to do with the fact that the person who friend-zoned you just doesn't find you attractive in that way. Long story short, get over yourself. Some people just won't be attracted to you like that. Making up some ridiculous excuse to make you feel better about that fact is pathetic. I'm ready for all the downvotes on this one. I'm just sick of hearing this friend zone, and it's time for a lot of people to get a reality check. TLDR, they're just not into you. The friend zone is made up.